CWC, or the Club World Cup, before the tournament even kicked off, a lot of people were already throwing shades at it. They were saying it's nothing but a glorified preseason tournament, basically useless. Some even complain that it's bad for the players because they already grind through a crazy amount of games during the season. And now they gotta deal with this too. People were worried it's just gonna drain them before the real season even starts. The crazy thing is, this tournament is actually bigger than what most of these clubs are playing for during the regular season. It's obvious that the Club World Cup is way bigger than the Champions League, the Libertadores, or even your regular domestic league. And the reason for that is simple. You're literally competing against the biggest clubs from all over the world to be called a world champion, not just a European champion, South American champion, or a national champion. So before we even get into the new Club World Cup format, let's take a quick look back at the older version and see why is this actually a huge upgrade. So for those who don't know, the Club World Cup actually started back in 2000 when it was called the FIFA Club World Championship. But after that first edition, they didn't play it for a few years, mainly because FIFA's marketing partner collapsed. The tournament came back in 2005, and since then it's been running every year up till 2023. Then FIFA decided to change the whole thing and make it even bigger, turn it into a World Cup style tournament every 4 years, starting in 2025. Back in the day, this competition was happening at the same time as the Intercontinental Cup. That was basically a match between the Champions League winner and the Copa Libertadores winner to see who's the best club in the world. But in 2005, they merged both tournaments into one called the FIFA Club World Cup, where clubs from all over the world could compete. The old format was pretty simple, just 7 teams, the champions from each continent plus 1 team from the host nation. In that setup, the champions from Africa, Asia, CONCACAF, and Oceania had to battle it out in the quarterfinals first. Meanwhile, the champions from Europe and South America got a direct pass straight to the semifinals. And that was basically how the tournament ran from 2005 all the way to 2023. Then FIFA announced the big change. The Club World Cup would switch to the full-on World Cup format with group stages, followed by the round of 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, and the final. 4 teams from Africa, 4 teams from Asia, 12 teams from Europe, North and Central America plus the Caribbeans get 4 teams from CONCACAF, Oceania sends 1 team, South America with 6 teams, and of course the host country gets 1 team. There are a couple extra rules too. If a club wins their continent's top competition more than once between 2021 and 2024, the FIFA ranking system decides who qualifies. Also, usually there's a max of 2 clubs per country allowed, but if more than 2 clubs from the same country win their confederations competition in that 4-year period, then exceptions can be made. So far so good. As a hardcore fan of the game, the summer break usually gets pretty boring, so having a competition during this time is a big plus for me. And just so you know, I'm not getting paid by FIFA to say that. I'm all for resting players too, but honestly there are way more competitions out there with way less value. I wouldn't even be mad if they got scrapped, like the Carabao Cup or the Spanish Supercopa being held in Saudi Arabia, which hardly anyone really cares about. Same goes for the Italian Supercopa. Also, I gotta say, I find it kinda cringe when players making over 100k a week start complaining about playing 55 games a season, especially when squads are heavily rotated. Since this tournament kicked off, all I kept hearing is European whining about the number of games. Meanwhile, some South American teams are out here playing 65 plus games with no complaints, taking the tournament seriously and grinding through it. Honestly, there's nothing really bad about the tournament except for those weird weather stoppages. I think it's a great competition. The constant negative bias from mainly Western football media is just tiring. We saw so many upsets happen and everyone loves that. I still believe a European team would probably take the trophy, but at least other teams are putting a strong fight. People are starting to realize that good football exists outside of Europe too. I love that people are giving more respect to other confederations. I really enjoy seeing matchups between teams from different confederations. Those kind of games you don't really get to watch. What I love even more is that it's showing how the so-called superiority of European football is, for the most part, is just markets and hype. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is America. Looking at the attendance, maybe it wasn't the best idea to host a tournament in a country that calls it soccer, and where a lot of people just don't really care about the sport. Plus, the travel rules to get in the US are complicated. And let's not forget, there were reports that immigration authorities, basically the modern day Gestapo, were going to be present at games checking people for proof of their migratory status. That definitely doesn't help when you're trying to attract international fans and make the tournament feels welcoming. To be fair, some games did have a good attendance, but there were others like Ulsan vs Mamelodi Sundowns that had barely any fans in the stands. And honestly, a match like that probably would have been just as empty if it was played in Argentina. I think the first edition should have been hosted in a country that really cares about football. That said, it does make some sense to have it in the US because they're testing out new stuff for the 2026 World Cup. They're announcing players as they come onto the pitch, kind of like the NBA, and for the 2026 World Cup, they're planning halftime shows similar to the Super Bowl. If this keeps up by the 2030 World Cup, I'm predicting we might end up playing with our hands and the ball will probably look like a freaking papaya. Who knows?